Asahina was with Haruhi, who had one hand around Asahina's shoulders and the other pointing toward the ocean as they looked off into the distance. "We're aiming for a Hollywood blockbuster," she shouted. "Feel free to point, but if you cross the ocean in that direction, you'll end up in Australia." "Good grief," I muttered as I set the video camera down and sat. It may be over for Koizumi, Nagato, and Asahina, but this is only the beginning of the end for me. There's still something I have to do. Somebody had to take the mass quantity of digital video I had filmed and somehow transform the accumulation of junk digital information into the semblance of a movie. And I'm pretty sure that I don't need to tell you to whom that task would fall. It was Friday evening, and Haruhi and I were the only people in the clubroom. The other three were working with their respective classes. It was great that we'd finished shooting and all, but since the film had taken so long, we barely had any time left to do the remaining tasks. As I replayed the footage I had loaded onto the computer, I came to the conclusion that we would have to turn this into a Mikuru Asahina promotional video clip. Very simple. To be honest, I didn't even have the slightest pixel of an idea as to what kind of movie Haruhi was making to the very end. Are the waitress, deaf girl, and grinning boy on the monitor okay in the head? And naturally, there wasn't enough time left to search around for visual effects, and I didn't have that ability to begin with. We just have to screen the film without any processing or editing. Haruhi grumbled. "We can't display an unfinished work. Do something about it." Is she talking to me? That's easy for you to say. The cultural festival's tomorrow, and I'm already exhausted. Editing this thing to fit the story you made up was the best I could manage. I probably won't want to watch any movies for a while. However, Haruhi excelled at crushing other people's opinions in an instant. Won't there be enough time with an all-nighter? And who's going to do that? Except I didn't say that, since I was the only one there and Haruhi's ebony eyes were looking straight at me. "You just have to stay overnight and finish the job." And then Haruhi said something that left me utterly speechless. "I'll help too." In hindsight, Haruhi wasn't any help at all. She stood behind me for a while, interfering, but it didn't even take an hour before she was sprawled on the table asleep. Damn, I should have filmed her sleeping. Then I could have put a still shot of that face after the ending credits rolled. And I should mention that I also fell asleep soon after. By the time I opened my eyes, it was already morning and the keyboard was imprinted in half of my face. Which means there had no point saying overnight. The movie remained unfinished. I managed to cut and piece the thing into something under 30 minutes, but the result was pretty pathetic. Just a wreck filmed on a whim by a bunch of amateurs who didn't have the slightest clue about movies. I should have just defied Haruhi and only used the budding Asahina shopping district commercials. When you consider that the objective of my editing was to match a story that didn't exist, which would be like spurring on failure, the result would have been something awful. In the end, there had been no dubbing or visual effects added, just a garbage movie so bad it was laughable. I couldn't even show this to Taniguchi. As I considered tossing the computer out the window, I squinted at the morning sunlight streaming in. I'd slept in an unnatural position, so my back was aching. By the time Haruhi, who had woken up first, had shaken me awake, it was 6:30 in the morning. Now that I think about it, this was the first time I'd ever stayed overnight in school. "Hey, how did it go?" Haruhi looked at the monitor over my shoulder. I had no choice but to move the mouse. The film began playing. Huh? As I listened to Haruhi's soft cheering, I was astonished. The CG movie I had never made was magnificently displaying a moving title. At that point, The Adventures of Mikuru Asahina, Episode 00, began playing with a crappy story, dialogue you could barely hear, and shaky video. You can even hear the director yelling off the screen at times. However, the visual effects were considered acceptable for a high school amateur film. Lasers were shooting from Asahina's eye, and strange rays were shooting from Nagato's wand. Haruhi was expressing her admiration. "Not bad, huh? It feels a little lacking, but you did a good job." It wasn't me. Unless another personality surfaced and did this while I was sleeping, there was no way I could ever accomplish this. Somebody else did it. Most likely candidate Nagato. Possible contender Koizumi. Out of the question Asahina. Dark horse, somebody who hasn't made an appearance yet. Something like that. We spend the next period of time silently appreciating our autonomously produced movie. I might have felt something different if I were watching this on a big screen instead of a small monitor. The video on the display shifted to the last scene. Koizumi and Asahina were holding hands as they walked under the cherry blossom trees in full bloom. The camera then panned up to show a blue sky. Cheap-sounding music began playing soon after as the staff roll began scrolling vertically. At the very end, Haruhi began narrating. The idea I had devised was to force Haruhi to deliver this narration. I convinced her that the director herself should deliver these closing words as a bit of an inside joke. They were magic words that canceled out everything that had occurred. This story is a work of fiction. There are no relation to any real people, organizations, events, or other names of phenomena. It's all made up. If anything seems familiar, it's just a coincidence. Oh, the commercials are an exception. Here's a shout out to Omori Electronics and Yamatsuchi Model Shop. Give them lots of business. What? Say it again? This story is a work of fiction. There is no relation to any real people or... Hey, Kyon, why do I have to say this? Shouldn't it be obvious? The cultural festival had begun, and I no longer had anything to do. From a practical standpoint, I would have to say that people have the most fun during the preparation stages of an event. Once the event actually begins, everyone is hurrying around and time just zips by. The next thing you know, it's time to clean up. That's why I'll be lounging around until then. For the next 2 days at least. I can do whatever I want without anyone complaining. By now, Haruhi, the only one who might complain, was probably standing by the school gate in her bunny girl outfit passing out flyers. At least until the homeroom teacher Okabe and the executive committee shows up to stop her. Well, I wonder how many she'll pass out. I left the club room and headed into the school grounds bustling with activity. The alterations to reality we had feared had been quelled. That's what Koizumi claimed, and Nagato had confirmed it, so it must be true. I realized it when Shamisen stopped talking. He's as silent as Nagato now. It'd be kind of mean to kick him out at this point, so I'm planning on keeping him. My sister also seems pretty happy about having a moving stuffed animal. I'll tell my family that the former owner ended up moving to his travel destination. The calico meows every now and then, which always makes me wonder if he's trying to say something else. Well, I suppose it doesn't matter. Speaking of stuff that's no longer around, I hadn't been able to find a program in the cultural festival that would have featured a group of people I'd seen walking around in bizarre outfits. I even checked the pamphlet issued by the executive committee and had a peek at all the classrooms that seemed remotely relevant, such as the drama club, but they weren't anywhere to be found. I wonder who those people were. I muttered, for no reason before marching through the school building. What if there were sliders wandering around our school? And the people in their world happened to be wearing fantasy-like clothing. Yeah, like what Nagato's been wearing. Wouldn't that mean that Nagato had purposely walked around in that outfit from the beginning to trick Haruhi? As if to give Haruhi the impression that such costumes were merely a part of the cultural festival. Nagato never says anything, so I can't be sure, but if it's possible she's engaged in some battle somewhere outside my knowledge. She was awfully quiet this time. If she had to save the earth from destruction or something, she probably would have just silently done it. She might tell me if I asked, but it probably won't be anything she can communicate through words. I doubt I have the brains to understand her if she did. That's why I decided to keep my mouth shut, especially when Haruhi's around. On a slightly relaxed note, the SOS Brigade produced movie was screened in the AV room. Our film was screened with the Film Research Societies as a double feature. Haruhi basically forced the Film Society into doing it this way. It was the only classroom with a projector. The Film Society disapproved until the very last second, but there isn't a human on this planet who can go against a decision made by Haruhi, so in the end, Haruhi had her way, and the pretty commercial-loaded movie was screened. By the way, the organization known as the SOS Brigade doesn't exist as far as the Cultural Festival's executive committee is concerned, so there isn't an item labeled The Adventures of Mikuru Asahina on the Cultural Festival program. We should probably give up on placing first in the popularity poll. Any votes we get will probably end up going to the Film Society. On another slightly related note, remember the movie that had been broadcast late at night and given Haruhi the idea to make a film project in the first place? Upon further research, I discovered that the movie hadn't even won a Golden Globe. The movie was something called Dake, which had been screened at the Cannes Film Festival a fairly long time ago. Did she make some kind of mistake? Just to make sure, I rented it. I fell asleep after 30 minutes. Therefore, I was unable to determine if it was interesting or not. I'm planning on giving it another try before I return it. I decided I might as well watch Class 1-9's play. Koizumi had a smile on his face the entire time as he was acting his odd role, which met a rather stupid death at the end. About as stupid as Haruhi's film, actually, but the audience seemed to enjoy it. Maybe I was just biased because the leading part had been played by Koizumi, and the fact that Koizumi looked like he was just being himself instead of acting definitely hurt. When Koizumi came out in response to the applause shortly after curtain call, he looked at me and shut one eye. I left the classroom before his creepy wink could reach me. I figured I might as well check out Nagato's class. But by the time I reached the classroom holding the fortune-telling convention, there was already a long line. I peeked in to see a number of girls dressed in black costumes. Nagato's inorganically pale face was among them. She was saying something in a flat voice to a customer as she moved her hands above a crystal ball placed on the desk. Try to keep it to lost items and the like, Nagato. The film and the trouble caused by the film were dealt with by making Haruhi realize that it's just fiction after all. However, you can't just say that the real world is fiction. You can't say that people like that can't exist when Haruhi, Asahina, Nagato, Koizumi, and I are all here. Eventually, we may all go our separate ways, but for now, the SOS Brigade exists, and the brigade chief and members are all together. That's the world as I know it, or as Nagato put it, for me at least. Well, what can I say? I have to wonder sometimes if this whole thing is just one big lie. Haruhi has no power. Asahina, Nagato, and Koizumi have just been putting on a grand show of lies. The white doves were painted. Shamisen was the result of a ventriloquist or a hidden mic. The autumn cherry blossoms and the Mirako Mikuruai were all just tricks of some sort. Something like that. Even if that were the case, I don't think I would really care. Guess there's no chance of that, though. At any rate, none of that matters right now. Simple arithmetic will tell you there's less strain on a person's head when we're all in this together instead of Haruhi and me being locked up somewhere by ourselves. The silver lining here would be that I'm not the only SOS Brigade member. I'm the only normal one, though. My eyes went to the clock in the classroom that was being used as a rest area, similar to 1-5. Oops, this isn't the time to be sitting around. It's almost time. It'd be a waste not to use these coupons after they were given to me. Also, I'm curious as to what kind of costumes they'll be wearing. I hurried to the spot where I would meet with Taniguchi and Kunikita to head to the Yakisoba cafe where Asahina waited. The end. I love you.